My spoiled cousin inherited $800,000 and taunted me. Enjoy being broke. He sneered. I just grinned, knowing he had no clue about money. 6 months later, he was banging on my door, penniless and devastated after blowing it all. I, 28M, never thought I'd see the day when my spoiled cousin would come crawling back to me. But life has a funny way of teaching lessons to those who refuse to learn. It all started 6 months ago at my grandmother's funeral. The whole family gathered to pay respects, but honestly, most of us were there wondering about the will. Grandma had been pretty well off, owning several rental properties and having a decent investment portfolio. What none of us expected was just how much she'd accumulated over the years. The lawyer read the will in the stuffy conference room of his office. My heart sank when I heard my name called for a measly $5,000 inheritance. Don't get me wrong, I was grateful for anything, but it stung knowing I'd been the one visiting her every weekend for the past 3 years, helping with groceries, fixing things around her house, and just keeping her company. Then came the bombshell. My cousin, let's call him the golden boy, inherited the bulk of her estate. $800,000 in cash, plus her house worth another $300,000. The room went dead silent. I watched his face light up like he'd won the lottery, which I guess he had. The worst part wasn't the money itself. It was what happened afterward. As we filed out of the lawyer's office, Golden Boy caught up with me in the parking lot. He was practically bouncing with excitement, his designer sneakers clicking against the asphalt. Hey, cousin, he called out, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. Looks like Grandma knew who her favorite really was. I kept walking toward my beat-up Honda, trying to ignore him, but he wasn't done. $800,000, he practically shouted. You know what I'm going to do with all that money? I'm thinking a new BMW, maybe a boat, definitely a trip to Europe. Oh, and I'm moving out of Mom and Dad's basement finally. I turned around, keeping my expression neutral. That's great. I'm sure Grandma would want you to be responsible with it. He burst out laughing. Responsible? Dude, I'm 26 years old, and I just became rich overnight. Time to live a little. He leaned against my car, blocking my path. But hey, don't worry about being broke forever. Maybe if you ask nicely, I'll throw you a few hundred when I'm feeling generous. I'm not broke, I said quietly. Right, he snorted. That's why you're driving this piece of junk and living in that tiny apartment. Face it, cousin, some of us are just born lucky, and others. He gestured at me dismissively. Others get $5 grand and should be grateful for it. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I forced myself to stay calm. Money doesn't last forever if you don't know how to handle it. Oh please, he waved me off. It's $800,000. I could spend $1,000 a day and it would last me over 2 years. But don't worry, I'm not stupid. I'll make it last way longer than that. I almost laughed at his math, but instead I just smiled. I'm sure you will. Enjoy being broke, he sneered as I got into my car. Some of us are about to start really living. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of him in my rearview mirror, already on his phone, probably calling his friends to brag about his windfall. What Golden Boy didn't know, what none of my family knew, really, was that I wasn't actually broke. Far from it. While he'd been living in his parents' basement playing video games and working part-time retail jobs, I'd been quietly building my wealth. I had a good job in software development, lived below my means, and had been investing steadily for the past 8 years. My portfolio was sitting pretty at around $400,000, and I owned my tiny apartment outright. I just didn't feel the need to broadcast my financial situation to everyone. The next few months were like watching a slow-motion car crash. Golden Boy's social media became a highlight reel of excess. First came the BMW, a brand new M for that cost him nearly $80,000. Then the designer clothes, the expensive dinners, the VIP club nights. He moved into a luxury apartment downtown with rent that probably cost more per month than most people's salaries. I watched from the sidelines as he burned through money like it was kindling. The European vacation lasted 3 weeks and included first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and enough shopping to fill a small store. The boat he bought was a sleek speedboat that he used maybe 5 times before getting bored with it. But the real kicker was when he decided to become an entrepreneur. He started throwing money at every get-rich-quick scheme he could find. Cryptocurrency day trading, a dropshipping business, some multi-level marketing thing that promised to make him a millionaire. He even invested in his friend's revolutionary app idea that was basically a worse version of something that already existed. I tried to warn him once, about 4 months in. We ran into each other at a family barbecue, and I could see the stress starting to show on his face, even though he was still putting on the rich guy act. How's the money management going? I asked casually. Amazing, he said, but his smile seemed forced. Just made a huge investment in crypto. Gonna double my money in 6 months. Which crypto? He mentioned some obscure coin I'd never heard of. A quick Google search later that night showed it was down 60% from its peak and dropping fast. Maybe you should consider talking to a financial advisor, I suggested. 800,000 is a lot to manage on your own. His face darkened. I don't need advice from someone who's still driving the same car from college. I'm doing fine. But he wasn't doing fine. By month 5, the social media posts became less frequent. The designer clothes were replaced with normal outfits. The BMW got traded in for a used sedan because he couldn't afford the payments anymore. The luxury apartment was swapped for a regular one-bedroom. I heard through family gossip that he'd blown through most of the inheritance and was starting to panic. Apparently, he'd been borrowing money from his parents and maxing out credit cards to maintain his lifestyle while his investments continued to tank. Then came the night that changed everything. I was sitting in my apartment, working on a side project, when someone started pounding on my door like the building was on fire. It was nearly 11 p.m., and I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and couldn't believe what I saw. Golden Boy stood there, but he looked nothing like the cocky guy who'd taunted me 6 months earlier. His hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes were red-rimmed like he'd been crying. He kept looking over his shoulder nervously. I opened the door. "What's wrong?" "I need help," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm in serious trouble." I let him in, and the whole story came pouring out. He'd lost almost everything. The crypto investments had crashed. The business ventures had failed spectacularly. He'd been living on credit for the past month, and now the bills were coming due. Worse, he'd apparently borrowed money from some very unsavory people to fund his last-ditch attempt at day trading, and they were expecting to be paid back with interest. "How much do you owe?" I asked. "Altogether?" "About 60,000. But the guys I borrowed from, they want their 30 grand by tomorrow or—" He trailed off, but I got the picture. "What about the house Grandma left you?" "Sold it 3 months ago to cover my losses. Got about $250 for it after fees and taxes." I did the math in my head. He'd somehow managed to blow through over $1 million in 6 months. It was almost impressive in its stupidity. "I know I was a jerk to you," he continued, tears starting to flow. "I know I don't deserve help, but you're the only family member who might have any money saved up. I'll pay you back, I swear. I'll get a job. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to." I sat there for a long moment, watching him squirm. Part of me wanted to throw his own words back at him. Enjoy being broke. But I'm not that petty. Well, not entirely. I might be able to help, I said slowly. But I have conditions. His face lit up with hope. "Anything. I'll do anything. First, you're going to publicly apologize to me for how you treated me after the funeral. Social media post, family group chat, the works. You're going to admit you were wrong and that you wasted Grandma's money." He nodded eagerly. "Second, you're going to get a real job. Not some get-rich-quick scheme, but an actual job with steady income. And you're going to keep it." "Yes, absolutely." "Third, you're going to take a financial literacy course. I'll pay for it, but you're going to complete it and show me the certificate." "Done." "And finally," I paused for effect, "you're going to work for me for the next year. I've been thinking about starting a small business, and I need someone to handle the grunt work. Minimum wage, but it's honest work." He looked confused. "Work for you? But I thought you were broke." I couldn't help but smile. "That's the thing, cousin. I was never broke. While you were living it up in your parents' basement, I was building my career and saving money. I've got enough to help you out of this mess, but I'm not just going to hand it over like Grandma did." The look on his face was priceless, a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and dawning realization. You have money? Enough. I live below my means, invest wisely, and don't feel the need to show off. Novel concept, I know. He was quiet for a long time, processing this information. So when I was bragging about being rich, I was probably worth more than your inheritance even then. The difference is, my money isn't going anywhere because I actually understand how it works. The next few hours were spent working out the details. I agreed to lend him the $60,000 to get the dangerous creditors off his back, but it came with a strict repayment plan and the conditions I'd outlined. He would work for my new consulting business during the day and take evening classes in financial planning. True to his word, he posted the apology the next morning. It was awkward and clearly painful for him to write, but he did it. The family group chat exploded with confused messages, and I had to field several calls from relatives asking what had happened. The real test came when he started working for me. I wasn't easy on him. I made him handle all the tedious administrative tasks, customer service calls, and basic data entry. He complained at first, but when I reminded him of his alternatives, he buckled down and did the work. Slowly, over the course of several months, I watched him change. The entitlement faded, replaced by a grudging respect for hard work and careful planning. He completed the financial literacy course with flying colors and even started asking intelligent questions about investing and budgeting. Update 1. It's been a year since that night he showed up at my door, and the transformation has been remarkable. He's paid back about half of what he owes me, right on schedule. More importantly, he's become a genuinely valuable employee. His customer service skills improved dramatically, and he's shown real aptitude for project management. Last month, I offered him a promotion to assistant manager with a real salary, not just minimum wage. He actually teared up when I told him, saying it was the first time in his life he'd earned something through his own merit rather than having it handed to him. The best part? He started investing his extra income. Nothing crazy, just a simple index fund strategy that will build wealth slowly and steadily over time. He asks me for advice occasionally, but he's learned to do his own research and make informed decisions. Update 2. We had a family reunion last weekend, and it was interesting to see how differently people treated both of us. Some relatives who had been kissing up to Golden Boy after the inheritance were now noticeably cooler toward him. Meanwhile, word had gotten out about my financial situation, and suddenly I was getting a lot more attention from family members who'd previously ignored me. Golden Boy handled it well, though. When our uncle made a snide comment about easy come, easy go, he didn't get defensive. Instead, he said, "You're right. I learned the hard way that money without wisdom is just a countdown timer to being broke again." I was proud of him in that moment. Update 3. The business has grown enough that I'm considering making him a junior partner. He's earned it, and frankly, I could use someone I trust to help manage the day-to-day operations while I focus on strategy and client relationships. We were talking about it over coffee yesterday when he brought up something that surprised me. "You know," he said, "I used to resent you for not just giving me the money with no strings attached. I thought you were being cruel, making me work for it, and jump through hoops. And now I realize you gave me something way more valuable than $60,000. You gave me the tools to never be in that situation again." He paused, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "If you just handed me the money, I probably would have blown it just like I did with Grandma's inheritance. But making me earn it back, making me learn, that was the real gift." I nodded. Grandma always said that giving someone money without teaching them how to handle it was like giving a drowning person a glass of water. She was right. He looked up at me. I think she would have been disappointed in how I handled her gift. Maybe, but I think she'd be proud of who you've become. As I write this, I can't help but reflect on how much both of our lives have changed. He went from spoiled rich kid to broke and desperate to a responsible adult with a promising future. I went from the broke cousin to a successful business owner who helped turn someone's life around. The money was never really the point. It was about respect, responsibility, and understanding that true wealth isn't just about how much you have. It's about how you handle what you've been given and what you do to earn what you get. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone who wronged you. Sometimes it's helping them become a better person than they were when they hurt you. Golden Boy learned that money without wisdom is worthless, and I learned that sometimes the most satisfying victory is one where everybody wins in the end. He still owes me about $30,000, but I'm not worried about getting it back. He's proven he's good for it, and more importantly, he's proven he's learned the lessons that money can't buy. The irony isn't lost on me that in trying to teach him about money, I ended up with something more valuable than any inheritance. A business partner I can trust, a family relationship that's stronger than it's ever been, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, people really can change for the better.